Okay. Shalom ubracha. Baruch Hashem. We should have the zchut of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai be with us, stand with us, Bezat Hashem. Just we should give a chizuk, something that happened not this year, but many years ago. I did a siyum on Masechet Shabbat on Lag Bomer. And the siyum took me 7 years to finish Masechet Shabbat. Why it took 7 years? Because at the time I was working my, off. I was working hard and I had no time to learn. I had to learn while transportation, while driving, by going on the bus. So I didn't have time to learn in a Beit Midrash like a normal person. I had to cop here and there. And when I had a chance to be a Beit Midrash, it was like 15 minutes. Okay, of Gemara. 15 minutes of Gemara, 10 minutes of Gemara. People say to me, it's ridiculous. You don't even get into the Gemara after 5-10 minutes, right? But that's all I had. So it took 7 years. On Lag Bomer, we drove with a group of Americans, Syrian Jews, Syrian Breslevers, students of Rav Michael Dorfman and Rav Moshe Borstein. So we went together, and the driver, he was going super slow. He was like a new driver. We had like a minivan, and he was pressing on the gas, but it wasn't going so fast. And I said to myself, this is great for me, because I had 3 more pages of Gemara to finish. And I was desperate to finish before Lag Bomer. So we're driving, everyone's upset at the driver that he's going slow and slow. I'm the only one happy, but don't say it. I want to finish the Gemaras. And then by accident, the driver, he went from, Safsufa, from the north. So by accident, he didn't know where he was going. He didn't get to Meron. He went into Gush Chalav. And it went inside, it's a Christian and Arab and Druzi village. It's all mixed. So we see the big fluorescent crosses, Shetiv. Everyone's upset at the driver. This is not Meron, the Americans. What did you do? And he said, doesn't know. And in the meantime, I'm happy. They wanted to daven mincha. They wanted to daven. We daven mincha before. We were anxious that they would get there for mincha. We got there mamish to Meron right at the beginning of the shkia. So we quickly got off. We had a quick minyan for Mariv, and then whatever for mincha, and then for Mariv. And then we said, okay, we have like 1 hour, 2 hours. And these people are like that. Not too much time in Meron. Whatever. So I brought with me, we got there, as we got there, I finished the Gemara. I finished Masechet Shabbat. I was so relieved that all these ikuvim, all these miniot, was I can finish the Gemara. So I'm looking for a nice place to do the siyum. It wasn't like today, in better years, not this year, and not the last year, and not the year before, but in better years, when there's hundreds of thousands of people, so you can barely move, you have to know where to go. But back then, I'm talking about at least 15 years ago, whatever. There was room, it was flexibility. So I went to the side of the building of Rabbi Shimon. There's like a wall at the level of the waist. And I seen an empty space. Next to the empty space, there was an old Yerushalmi Chassid, whatever man, has the black Yerushalmi hat, white beard, and a cane, sitting down. Looked very respectable, very respectable. And I asked him, can I do a siyum here? He says, Avandai, Rabbi Isai, siyum. He started screaming, Rabbi Isai, the siyum. And all of a sudden people came. And I'm doing the siyum, I'm doing the Gemara. And this Rav, off by heart, is saying word for word with me of the Gemara. Okay? And then he was happy, he said, Mazel Tov, no, Kaddish. So I did the Kaddish, Yitkada, whatever. And all the additional parts he was saying with me together. Going nuts, what is this? He's saying the Hadran with me. Okay? So we finished, Mazel Tov, we cut the cakes, whatever. He said to me like this, I've been coming here many, many, many years, and I've never seen a siyum here. I've never seen a siyum in Meron, on Lag Bomer. Fine, so I asked people, what do you think this is? They said, this must have been Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Because he was dressed, this man, I didn't know who he was. He looked very like a malach. He looked like a mamash tzaddik, this guy. Who knows who he was? But it was a good feeling. Because again, it wasn't a regular siyum. It took 7 years to finish Masechet Shabbat. That was a killer. It was a killer. Many people told me, just drop it already, stop, And I was saying to myself, you're never going to finish. You're going so slow and this and that. But I didn't give up 7 years to finish Masechet Shabbat. It was a killer. Baruch Hashem. So we have this zchut of Rabbi Shimon stand by us. Bezat Hashem. It was a big thing. For those who got there, it was a big zchut. For those who tried to get there, it was a big zchut. For those who did it bigger, if you want to say, I don't know, bigger. I'm not the judge. And those who didn't get there at all, it's a zchut also that at least you care about the idea and you believe in it, Bezat Hashem. One guy wrote to me, why kill yourself and do the hassle, you have to wait in line and in the sun, it's such a schlep. The answer is that's the whole thing. This is the Mesirat Nefesh you need to go to be by tzaddik. It's required. This is sometimes a requirement. He's in lesson 66. Rabbi Nachman Rabbeinu says that traveling to a tzaddik is an item that your whole Yiddishkeit is dependent upon. We'll tell it to the Litvaks, they'll smack you. They say, what? What in the world? But he says, this is the one Yesod that everything else is dependent upon. Okay, we're going to continue. We're still in Sif Gimel. Sif Gimel. Okay, I can't leave this pasuk. This pasuk that we did last week is so deep. Let's take a look at this pasuk again for just one more insight. Okay. Right towards the end of Sif Gimel, lesson Likutey Moharan, lesson 24, paragraph number 3. Okay, he says like this. We're not going to go into this one. This so many times already. So many times, right? This idea that he's saying in Psalm 37, the psalmist is saying, Torah Elokav bilibo, the God, the Torah of his Lord is in his heart. And it's referring to David HaMelech, right? Which Rabbeinu interprets when you do the mitzvot with joy. So Torah Elokav is the mitzvot. Belibo is the proof that it's with joy, because Natata Simcha Belibi, you gave Simcha in my heart. So the term in the heart connotes joy, as opposed to, I said again and again, El Libo. El Libo is distance to the heart. In the heart and to the heart is two like destinations. We're going to the heart and then it's in the heart already. In the heart is where the joy is already. So through joy in the heart, by doing the mitzvah with joy, Lotim Adashurav, the mitzvah goes to walk and arouse. And then Rabbeinu brings a second pasuk, which always the question is, why does he bring a second proof to the same idea? And also this is the same this idea of another verse, Psalm 68, Halichot, right? We said the verse many times already. Ra'u halichotecha Elokim, halichot keli Malki b'Kodesh, right? The Jews at the Red Sea, Ra'u halichotecha Elokim, they saw your walkings, my Lord. Halichot keli, the walkings of Keli, Malki b'Kodesh, the walkings of my God, who's the king, Malki, b'Kodesh is in holiness. And we said, Rabbeinu interprets the verse like this. He breaks up Halichot Keli and Malki b'Kodesh separate. But really the pshat is Halichot Keli Malki, comma, b'Kodesh. Rabbi Nachman's not reading it like that. He's reading it, Halichot Keli is because of Malki b'Kodesh. Kishe ma'alim Malchut letoch HaKedusha, when you elevate the Malchut into holiness, which is the last words of the pasuk, Malki b'Kodesh. In other words, when you succeed in doing the mitzvot with joy, and by doing the mitzvot with joy, you elevate, number 1, the Malchut, number 2, the Shechina, number 3, holiness. Sorry, number 3, the Malchut, the mitzvah, and the Shechina. All those are interrelated. There's even more terms. You elevate them into holiness by doing the mitzvah with joy. So that's Malki b'Kodesh. So then the mitzvah that you just did now with joy, its energy goes up a level. He malbeshet, it encloses, it becomes a garment to Halichot Keli. What's Halichot Keli? So interprets Halichot as plural. That's Halichot means the walkings. It's in plural. So you don't walk with one leg, you walk with 2 legs. And in the Sphira correlation, the corresponding of the Sphirot to the parts of the physical body, but really it's referring to levels of representation in heaven. So Halichot is Netzach and Hod. Keli, we saw in the charts of divine names and what they correspond to. Keli also refers to Yesod. Okay? So Halichot is Netzach Hod, which is Yesod, and Eli is Yesod. So the mitzvah dresses up Halichot Keli, Netzach Hod Yesod, which means what? By dressing up the areas, it's called in fancy English, he says here, the ambulatory organs. The organs of walking, the legs, they're called ambulatory organs. So dresses up Netzach Hod Yesod, Lelech, and why? What's nafkamina? Lelech, to walk, to go, and to arouse all the things in the creation back to Hashem. So your mitzvah wakes you up. We had something funny happen in Meron. I have to bring this up because it's connected. The way to subdue your enemies is with joy. Okay, that's the main theme of this lesson. The main way to subdue the klippas is you have to be b'simcha. So we had many times, you know how it is in Meron, this year especially, there were many barriers. And like Bomer, you had various and various. They had two routes. They had what's called the Mahajin route, which is for men only. And at the general route were also people, there were men and women on the side. And they were telling us, don't take the Mahajin route. The police made it difficult for the Mahajin route, but they kept on stopping, another stopping, another mahsom, another stopping and stopping and stopping. And it was like, why are they stopping? Because there's too many people on top. It was all bogus, because afterwards, in the afternoon, they knocked down, the front people knocked down the boundaries. They went in, not one person died, not one person choked, not one person fixed. And the front people themselves, they organized the traffic. Okay, guys, please keep on moving, kiss the kever and go. No police involved, no hitting, no smacks. People, there was a lot of what's called shituf peula. We had a mahsom when we got up the hill to Rabbi Shimon. So there was the first mahsom. I went on the regular route. So that the men were standing here. The police were with their, what's it called in English? Their boundaries, the fences, barricades that they put up. Thank you, that's a good word. And the women were here. So there were much more women than men because this is their route mainly. The men should go on the Mahajin normally, right? So much more women, they let them in once. And we're assuming you can't talk to the police. We're soon, yeah, another 5 minutes, soon. So we're waiting, and it's burning hot sun. There's fathers, they brought their kids for the halakha. So there's one father for a cute boy, and the air police, they were so happy they were taking pictures of the cute boy. And in the meantime, he's platzing, the father is schwitzing and everything, and the Britzan, let him go in. No, orders, no. Okay? The women gather up more and more women. They let the women a second time. The men started getting upset. Some men started, what is this? And arguments and this. There was no fighting though. One guy was smart. One Yerushalmi guy was smart. Instead of fighting with, just you're waiting there, and you're eating your kishkas while waiting because of the anger, doesn't help. Because you're in a bad mood and it's hot and you're so anxious you want to go already, and the police are standing there and the people they pay, the guards there to stand there. One guy was smart. He started singing, Bar Yochai, and everybody started singing because that's the best thing to do. Especially what he says here, that simcha is machnia, the dinim, it mitigates judgments, it opens the doors. So he's saying Bar Yochai, still nothing. So he's saying also the second song, Va Martem Kol Echai, and finished that. And the people wanted to sing more, and then they let us sing. Yalla, we let in and we went through. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Stop singing and get in. That's how, this is the theme of this lesson. When you're going through a stressful situation, if you get upset, it's going to make it worse. What to do? Simcha. Fight back. Simcha. We spoke about this last week also, but here it's like much more. Here's an example that just happened, right? So when you deal with your situations with joy, again, that's not easy because you're this, that, and everything. It's a training of the mind, but the training of the mind requires a lot of siyata d'shmaya. If you don't have siyata d'shmaya, it won't work. You need to remember certain things that are not to get angry. For that, you need a schut, okay? So that's hinted to, watch, in halichot keli. So he says here, you elevate the mitzvah now to the level of the legs so they can wake up everybody. Okay, so based on what you're saying here, Rabbi Nachman Rabbeinu, halichot, I understand. Because what walks, what moves? The right leg, the left leg. In the sfirot, netzach and hod. Why do you need yesod? What does the reproductive organ or, the genital organ have to do with halichot? Halichot is the legs, so it's the legs. It's netzach and hod. Why does he throw in here yesod? What is yesod, the sphere of yesod, have to do with the ability to walk, and in our context, to spread the mitzvah's light to everybody? What does it have to do? What in the world is Yesod having to do here, right? Halichot, I understand. Why do I need bichal keli? Why do I need keli? You want to say it's the peula, it's the activity of walking. Now the mitzvah has feet. Your mitzvah that you're doing with joy goes up a level. It has feet. To walk, meaning what? Your mitzvah now can penetrate other people and get people to wake up. Great. That's the feet. Why are you throwing in Yesod? Why do I need Yesod for this? That's the whole thing. It says halichot av keli, right? Yesod is in between netzach and hod. What is Yesod? Yesod is the Brit, right? The covenant, which represents the sexual purity. And it refers to the tzaddik, okay? Halichot keli. Keli means the kel, it can mean like this. The pasuk, the pshat of the pasuk is the walkings, the going of my God. Okay, the going of my God. So that's halichot keli, the halichot of keli. It can also mean the halichot of the kel that's within me. You remember the Gemara, Chazal, Rashi, Kel Yaakov, right? But he called Vayikra, that he's called, Yaakov is called Kel. Do you remember this Gemara in the Midrash? That Hashem gave permission for Yaakov to be called Kel. That's scary. What's going on? There's only one Hashem. But Hashem, Rashi brings us down, it's a Gemara, it's a Midrash, that Yaakov reached such a, Yaakov reached a level of Yesod-Brit, all-inclusive. The 12 tribes came from him. His mita hayta shlema, right? When it says about Reuven, Reshit Oni. Reuven was Yaakov Avinu's first drop. He had no Zera Levatala, he had no, Mikra Laila, he had no nocturnal emission, nothing. Yaakov Avinu to the age of 80-something, right? 87? How old was Yaakov Avinu when Reuven was born? 80-something, not 70-something. He was already 80-something, and Yaakov was able to say, Reuven is my first son, he's Reshit Oni, he's the first of my Zera, he's the first offspring. And from here we learned that Yaakov Avinu had a level of Yesod-Brit. Fine, Yosef is the big representation of Yesod, because he went to a test in that area of Potiphar's wife, and he passed the test. And Yaakov worked on himself, not necessarily with a big test, but he reached, because Yaakov, don't forget, represents Tiferet. Tiferet is above Yesod. And Yesod receives from Tiferet. The Gemara says in Masechet Sota, page 36b, Lamed Vav Amud Bet, that it was fitting that 12 sons come out of Yosef HaTzadik, just like Yaakov Avinu. Because it says, Ele Toldot Yaakov, Yosef. These are the Toldot of Yaakov, comma, Yosef. So the Gemara says, what does it mean, Ele Toldot Yaakov, Yosef? Whatever happened to Yaakov and Yosef are considered one. Meaning, what happens to Yaakov Avinu happens to Yosef HaTzadik. So just as Yaakov Avinu had 12 sons, Yosef was supposed to have 12 sons. Why didn't Yosef have 12 sons? We're going off a little because this is amazing. The Gemara says like this. Yosef was supposed to have 12 sons. In the end, he had 2 sons. What happened? How come they haven't decided 2 instead of 12? Because when, it says in the Gemara there, Lamed Vav Amud Bet, unbelievable. When Potiphar's wife wanted to seduce him, so it says a few things, okay? And Rabbeinu is going to bring this pasuk coming up. Midei Avir Yaakov, right? Misham Ro'eh Even Yisrael, the pasuk coming up in paragraph 4. At the beginning of the pasuk is Vateshev Eitan Kashto. This is unbelievable what the Gemara says. That Yosef was being so tempted to be with her, Potiphar's wife, and to have an emission. And then he saw the image of his father, Yaakov Avinu. And Yaakov Avinu, the image said to him, be careful. If you do this, you're going to lose your place on the Choshen Mishpat, on the breastplate of Aaron HaKohen, of the Kohen Gadol. You're not going to have a stone. Okay? So that gave him the strength, Midei Avir Yaakov, because of the Abirut. Rashi translates Abiruto Shel Yaakov, from the hands of the Abirut of Yaakov. So the Gemara says he stuck his 10 fingers in the earth, like exercise. Some people do that. And when they do push-ups, some people do the push-ups on all 10 fingers. It's a killer. When you do that, all the pressure's on the nails and the tip of the finger. You know how it kills? So the pain, the Gemara says he did that purposely, so the pain in his fingers should take him away from the sexual excitement that he was having with Potiphar's wife. Don't forget, Potiphar's wife, the Gemara says, was very beautiful. She wasn't an ugly woman. An ugly woman, there's no test. It's because she was very beautiful that he had a big test, okay? So the Gemara also says that he strengthened himself so much that 10 drops of the zera came out of his 10 fingers. Okay, there's many mefarshim that say you can't take it literally. The Ben Ish Chai commentator Ben Ayahu Ben Yadai says yes, according to the Sod, it is taken literally. That somehow the seed that was supposed to come out, and it would be forbidden if it came out from the genital organ, it came out a different way, which means there's no ta'ava. The time that there's zero levatala as a blemish is that when it's associated with a thought and there's excitement. And excitement takes place in that area of the brit, of the genital or reproductive organ. But when there's coming out from anywhere else in the body, there's no excitement. So he wasn't punished for that, Yaakov of Yosef HaTzadik. There's 10 drops corresponding to the 10 other sons that he was supposed to have, but he didn't because he lost those 10 drops. He wasn't punished, but the Gemara says was supposed to have 12, but instead we give him 2. The 10 were those 10 drops that came out of his fingers. Unbelievable, okay? It's coming. We're going to go more into this when we get to the actual pasuk, Midei Avir Yaakov. But here, Rabbeinu's hinting to happen. It's amazing. Likutey Moharan is so scary. When Rabbi Nachman brings a pasuk earlier, okay, and then later, in the next paragraph, you can start making connections between the ideas of one pasuk and a later pasuk. And here's an amazing example. Halichot Keli is referring to the tzaddik within me. And in our context, that is, since he brings himself, coming up, the next paragraph, Midei Avir Yaakov, Rabbi Nachman himself mentions the name Yaakov, and the Gemara, you see, when Rabbeinu brings a pasuk, he assumes, all the Gemara, the Midrash, the Zohar on that pasuk. And this is a very clear Gemara in Masachet Sotah on this pasuk, that Avir Yaakov, it was the image of Yaakov that saved Yosef. Rabbi Nachman goes into this, by the way, in Sichot Haran. It's also Likutey Moharan, that it's something you can understand how a person's about to do an Avera, and from Shamayim, they help a person, like in the case, if Yosef didn't see the image of his father, would he do the sin? Mistama not. So Rabbi Nachman says, this is something unbelievable, that Shamayim, they help a person. But here, what was the format of the help? It came in the image of Yaakov Avinu. And who's Yaakov Avinu? In the context of Yosef HaTzadik, he's his tzaddik. Who's the tzaddik? Yosef HaTzadik is like our tzaddik. He's called Yosef HaTzadik. And who was Yosef HaTzadik's tzaddik when it came to his test? Because he also needed a tzaddik in his life. The tzaddik in Yosef's life was his father, Yaakov Avinu. Okay? So here, Halichot Keli is referring to the tzaddik. Okay? So that means Halichot is the legs. Keli is the Yesod, which is the idea of the tzaddik. What in the world does this have to do with the mitzvah walking? The original question we have. We just said now, Halichot Keli, I understand Halichot. The word Keli doesn't seem to be a part of this idea here. And yet it is, because here, Rabbeinu is hinting to something very important. You want your mitzvah to have movement. You want your mitzvah to move. Fine, you're doing the mitzvah of simcha. There's another condition needed. What's that the condition? You need Keli. You need a tzaddik in your life. Again, it goes back to this thing. You need, on one hand, you need Yesod-Brit, okay? Like Rav Nosson says, if you don't have the Yesod-Brit, so you're finished. In other words, how can I do mitzvot b'simcha? A person who's very blemished in this area. He has sexual blemishes. So start saying, if I'm so blemished, my mitzvot won't have any power, even if I do that as much simcha as I can, they won't go and move, because look at me, look how blemished I am. Who says that my mitzvah, even after everything I've done in my life, will have momentum and movement to change the world? This I can understand for someone who's a kel, like Yaakov Avinu or Yosef HaTzadik. People who are up there, they can do this. The little me, all the garbage I'm going through every day that I continue to do, and I can't get out, and I'm stuck, and I want to be a better person, but it's just not happening for days and weeks and months and years. I'm not getting anywhere, chas v'shalom, right? I lost my battery. Come on. I know what to do. How could it be that my mitzvah can move? So Rav Nosson says this many times. If you in yourself are not a tzaddik, then you need more than anybody else to attach yourself to a tzaddik. Okay? It's like in the Mishnah. There's a Mishnah, I think, in Uktzin. Davuk la tahor, tahor. In the laws of Tuma and Tahara, if now there's an item which is tahor, and there's a Tuma which is smaller, and it's connected to this item, the tahor item transforms the tameh because it's like smaller than a kad adasha or whatever, it's smaller than the minimum amount, okay, and it's connected to something which is big time tahor. The tahor, the pure item transforms the impure item to become also tahor. Even though in itself, if I separate it, the tameh item is still tameh, but because it's attached to a bigger item which is tahor, it becomes automatically okay. So as bad as I am, as blemished a person thinks he is and thinks it's big, but always mida tova meruba, the good always has the upper hand. Compared to how bad I am, I know that there are big time tzaddikim that compared to their holiness and their greatness, my bad is like this big. The tzaddik in himself, whoa, is humongous. Okay, I did bad things, but does it come to diminish the greatness of the tzaddik just because a person did bad? Does he have the right to say, tzaddikim can't help me, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai can't help me, I'm a lost case, Rabbi Nachman can't help me, all these big tzaddik, they can't help me? No, that's a p'amin emunat chachamim. The opposite. These tzaddikim, that's the whole thing, is that they're very big. How big are they? They themselves tell us their greatness. We went into this once. Ya'alel chazar velo picha. I don't think we mentioned this. It's an amazing Gemara and Zohar on this pasuk. יעלל לך זר ולא פיך. It's a pasuk in Mishlei that someone else should praise you and not your own mouth. יעלל לך זר, someone who's zar, should praise you, ולא פיך. Lemay nafka, what is this for? When a Talmid Chacham comes to a new city, it's, and they know him, so he shouldn't say, I'm a big shot, I'm a big top, I'm a big shot, I'm a big rav and everything. No. Let other people who don't know about his greatness, about Chafetz Chaim, about this rav, he's unbelievable. Let other people talk about you, but don't talk about yourself. However, what if you come to a place where nobody knows you, this rav, and if you don't tell them who you are, they're going to mistreat you? Like the famous story of the Or HaChaim, right? The story associated with Parshat Bechukotay. That he came to a place and the Rav was giving 42 explanations with Ruach HaKodesh, and he said all these interpretations come from the Or HaChaim Kadosh. It's a whole story, right? People know more or less the story, that the Or HaChaim revealed 42 interpretations, and this Rav that the Or HaChaim was on was called a self-imposed galut. He did it purposely as an atonement for something he did, that he would go to a place where no one knows him, and to be insulted and treated like a regular person, even though he was a big tzaddik. So when the Rav was saying on that Shabbat, the Rav Friday night gave some chidushim from the Or HaChaim of the 42, Shabbat day from the 42 chidushim, and then Seder Shlishit. And every time he went to speak, and he said, all this is from Rav Chaim ben Atar, the Or HaChaim Kadosh. The Or HaChaim himself would get up, he's not a Rav, he's a nobody. They were so upset, the people, they even hit him and threw him out. He did it purposely, right? And afterwards, there was the whole story of Motzi Shabbat Havdalah, that the Malachei Chabala can't do their damage. They can't go back to whatever, Gehinam, or to punish the people, or Gehinam until the Or HaChaim does Havdalah. So it became revealed that he's the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, right? So those are cases where a tzaddik does purposely what's called a self-imposed galut. Fine. But normally, a Rav comes somewhere, Yalel Chazar, fine, someone else should praise you. Velo, comma, and if there's nobody there who knows who you are, Picha, the Rav himself, the tzaddik himself, has to make himself known. So they say about how could Rabbi Nachman, for example, how could Rabbi Shimon in the Zohar? Rabbi Shimon in the Zohar is not just like a burst of thing. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the Zohar and many Tanaim and Amoraim in the Gemara, they praise themselves. Remember, there's one Tana, so he said, don't say that there's no more humility because I'm still here. Don't say when this Rav passed away, then there was no more humble people. So one Rav, I think Rabbi Yosef, he said, don't say that, I'm still here. You say humility, and I'm still here, right? And also, Moshe Rabbeinu writes the pasuk in the Torah, Va'ish Moshe, Anav Bikol Adam Asher Pin Adama. Moshe Rabbeinu was the humblest person in the world. Who's writing the verse? Fine, Hashem is dictating to Moshe Rabbeinu. But if Moshe Rabbeinu, you're so humble, how could you accept to write this pasuk about yourself? You can say, no, Hashem is telling me to do it. But it goes against what we understand as humility, okay? And so too, Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Shimon and the Zohar, Rabbi Nachman also, they speak about their own greatness themselves. Why? Because in this world, people have to know about the greatness. Ya'alel Chazar, that somebody else praise them. But people in this world don't know about the greatness of the tzaddikim. Velo, they don't know. So Picha, the tzaddik has to tell about his greatness. Why? So that you, as low as you feel about yourself, as broken you feel about yourself, as devastated and finished and punished you feel about yourself, and what I did is terrible, oh my God, finished everything. But compared to the greatness of the tzaddikim, it's still super tiny. The tzaddik's greatness is untouched because of what you did. What you did is minuscule damage compared to the greatest of the tzaddik. It doesn't come to diminish it. Just because you did bad things, don't say, no one can help me, no one, and there's no tzaddik can help me, I'm a lost case. Don't say that. Don't say that's the test by the Emunat Chachamim. Okay? So here also, Halichot is when there's keli. Halicha, for the mitzvah to have, proportions and power to get the world back to Hashem, you need what's called Eli. Okay, you need Yesod. Now I understand, why is Yesod doing here? Netzach and Hod, I understand, those are the legs. Those correspond to the legs, meaning the mitzvah moves, it gets people to wake up on condition that it's Keli. It's connected, it's Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. Okay, it's amazing, we're talking about this in the week of Yesod. This is the week of Yesod, it's Vet Omer, coming up Yesod of Yesod. The Yesod is to strengthen the idea of the tzaddik. Rabbi Shimon, Hod Shebehod, yes, he leads the way to Hod Shebehod. But it's now connecting to the week of Yesod, B'ezrat Hashem, that we should have a tzaddik in our life. Going back to what we said, it can be very low. But if you are attached to a tzaddik. So like Rav Nosson says, it's compared to a nanas al gabe anak. You have a giant. I'm a midget. I from myself, my perspective, I'm a little guy, I'm a midget. But where am I? I'm positioned on the shoulders of a giant. So when you put a midget on top of a giant, he's taller than everybody else now. In himself, he's a midget. Put him on the floor, I'm a midget. I'm a tiny guy. But I'm a nanas al gabe anak. Rav Nosson writes this in his introduction to the Likutey Moharan. How does he have the audacity to write his chidushim? He says, because he's like a nanas al gabe anak. If these were my chidushim, Rav Nosson writes in the beginning of the Likutey Moharan, if these were my insights, I'm a tiny guy. But because I have the chutzpah of holiness, the audacity to speak and write down these chidushim, and he says, neged melachim velo evosh, and I will even, proclaim it. I won't regret everything I'm writing in these books, because everything emanates from the tzaddik that I'm connected to, the Nachal Novea Mekor Chochma Rabbi Nachman. Okay, that's what Rav Nosson said in his introduction to Likutey Moharan. And then he uses this term, I'm like a midget on top of a giant. So a person in himself can be tiny. Okay, where's your hope? Your hope is that you have keli. You have a tzaddik, yesod, in your life. So now whatever you do, it's connected to the tzaddik. You can do bad things, okay, but the tzaddik's greatness can wipe it off. There's a scary statement in Likutey Moharan. Most people shouldn't know about it, but it's written down. That Rabbi Nachman said, as damaging as Lashon Hara is, when Lashon Hara is spoken, it causes damage also to the person listening to it, not just the person saying it. What can you do if now someone all of a sudden spoke Lashon Hara in front of you? What can you do now, right? So Rabbi Nachman says in Likutey Moharan that even if someone were to speak Lashon Hara in front of me, it would stop the damage. In my presence, and there was Lashon Hara, it would cut it. But he said, but that doesn't give you a permission to speak Lashon Hara in front of me, even though I have the ability to cut it from doing the damage of the Mekabel, the person who's hearing the Lashon Hara. There's the Mesaper and the Mekabel. He can stop it. So it doesn't give you permission to say it in front of me. What's the point again? Is that even if you do something damaging, okay, you regret it, you're sincere. The tzaddik won't allow people who are not sincere attached to him. They'll eventually even drift off. Someone who has insincerity, and he says, I can do what I want because I have a tzaddik. I can do what I want because I go to Uman Rosh Hashanah every year and I go to Lag Bomer Rabbi Shimon. I can do what I want. It doesn't work. The person stays like that with his haughtiness and his ga'ava, eventually it drifts off. To be close to a tzaddik, you need hachna'a, keli. It's my kel, the kel within me, meaning the tzaddikim who I receive from, I'm bent to them. I accept them. It's not like someone who's Baal Gaiva, he can't. Rav Nosson once explained the Mishnah, I think it's this week. Tell me if we saw it already. Kina, was it Kina or Sina? Kina ta'ava v'kavod motzin et adam min ha'olam. That's the Mishnah. Did I say it right? Kina, ta'ava, and kavod. The Tana says like this. Kina, jealousy, lust, desires, and the search for honor, motzin et adam min ha'olam. They take a person out of this world. They destroy a person. So Nosson says like this. If a person has kina, okay, he has jealousy, like how they come like that, I don't have like this, and he's so matzliach, and I like that, and it's eating the person up, there's still hope for such a person. If a person has kina and ta'ava, he likes eating and likes doing garbage things and everything, and also has jealousy, such a person still has hope. If now, however, after a person has kina and ta'ava, and he still wants honor, the combination of the Mishnah, the combination of all three, kina, ta'ava, and kavod, that takes a person out of this world. Okay? Unbelievable. So we finished up. Okay, let's just finish the Yesod. So we went into this. We'll stop here. We'll continue, God willing, in the next class on the Sif Dalit. We should be zocher to have a keli. In other words, the tzaddik within. The tzaddik within you is a tzaddik you're connected to. That's basically keli, the Yaakov. That's with keli, within me. Okay, my tzaddik point, my pintelet tzaddik, and the tzaddik that I'm attached to. Then I have halichot. The halichot, my mitzvah has movement. That I do a mitzvah and I feel down, okay. But you have a mitzvah and you're connected to tzaddikim, okay? And because of that, you have such simcha, that gives the momentum, the thrust to your mitzvah to move over. Okay, shkoyach.